Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Talking Disney podcast. And this is a show where we talk about the Disney canon. And we have finished doing our recap of every single movie in the canon. So make sure you check out the playlist with all of those recaps. So, what we're going to be doing going forward is, for a little while at least, we are going to be each month talking with a content creator about their ranking and going through and just sharing thoughts. It's going to be super fun. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Stanford is here.
Hey, how's it going?
And we have very, very special guests with us today.
We do.
And we have Dave Lee here. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me again. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. So we had you on to talk about Sword in the Stone
Yes.
when we're doing our recaps. And it's great to talk with you again.
You too. It's been a while.
I know.
About a year and a half.
A long time.
It's been at least a couple of years, yeah. So it's good to be back.
It feels that way.
Yeah.
Everything feels so long in the age of COVID.
Absolutely.
True.
Absolutely does.
So, we're really excited to have you here. And did you have a good holiday season?
Yes, it's been very nice. I'm over in the UK at the moment. Spending some time with my girlfriend for the first time in 2 years, which has been very nice.
Yeah.
Just still trying to dodge COVID and all that, as we all are. But, it's as good as it can be at the moment. So I hope you guys have had a good one as well.
Yeah. I mean, for my other podcast, I cover all the Christmas movies. And so it's pretty intense. I watched and reviewed 125 new Christmas movies.
Oh, man.
So it was
I know. You can't even comprehend it.
No.
So yeah, but it was really good, and I got to go to Disneyland, so you can't complain there.
Yay!
Not at all.
No,
perfect.
So, all right, well, let's dive in, and what. I guess we should start by just your overall experiences. How many times have you been able to watch the whole canon? What that experience is always really unique.
I've probably watched it beginning to end once, but I've watched all of the movies at least 2 or 3 times each.
Yeah.
So, over the years, obviously, some obviously have watched more than others countless times, but from beginning to end, it's just been the one time where I've done that.
What do you think you learn from watching the whole canon?
It's a masterclass in the history of animation. I mean, you have Walt Disney and his team quite literally inventing the craft in those early films, and watching how the craft evolves over the best part of 80 and 90 years is told through these films. And I think that's the biggest thing that you can take away. And also how storytelling changes over the course of time as well. You start with these very small, very quaint stories compared to the kind of big blockbuster epic stuff that we're getting now. I think you can learn not only about the history, but about just, the natural evolution of cinema, if you want to say, and storytelling through the animated film.
Yeah. What do you think, Stanford, about watching the canon?
Well, I really appreciate Dave's excellent response to that, and I would concur. I think as far as with the history, both of I think of the the medium, and also I just love the variety of films that they have made over the years. I think particularly with the Michael Eisner era, which has its ups and definite downs. But still, I appreciate how they try how the Walt Disney Animation Studios has really tried to make films almost within different genres. And although I feel like the Disney animated feature is a genre in and of itself, but I just the history, and then I just I appreciate the variety.
Yeah, and I think when I very first watched the canon, I have watched it. This will be my this. I just finished my third watch through of the canon, and the first two times I did it chronological, and I did it first for my blog, and then I did it for my channel. I have videos of every single movie, and then we did it this non-chronological random way this time. And the chronological way, I was just so struck by how bold Disney was, especially those first golden movies. And I don't think he necessarily gets the credit he deserves for being such an artist, like being so bold creatively. And then, things would change, obviously with the war and everything. But that just really struck me as just like, wow, because it would have been so easy to have just made a bunch of princess movies, because that's, was the first one that did so well. But, to come out with something so different with Pinocchio and Fantasia after Snow White, it's just incredible to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're spot on. It's just not only the artistic vision, but that vision for exploring different stories. Walt famously said, "You can't top pigs with pigs." He never wanted to do a sequel. He never wanted to do the same thing over and over again. One of his first big hits was the Three Little Pigs Silly Symphony short film. And when he was asked if he'd do a second one, he said, "You can't top pigs with pigs. You can't do the same thing."
Yeah.
He did end up going back and doing 2 Little Pig sequels, but that's another story. That's another question. But he was someone who wanted to just continually keep pushing the boundary, not only with his artistic style, but in his storytelling as well. Didn't want to keep doing that same thing over and over again. That's why he never went back and did sequels. And that's why it's so rare up until recently to get a sequel to a Disney film that is considered part of the canon, made by the Walt Disney Animation Studio. Pardon me.
Yeah. He's famous for saying, "Around here, however, we don't look backwards for very long. We keep moving forward, opening up new doors and doing new things because we're curious, and curiosity keeps leading us down new paths." So he wasn't about looking backwards, doing sequels, things like that. Like, I don't know if you agree, Dave, but I think he would be horrified by these remakes, the live action remakes.
I think he would. I think I'm in two minds. I think he'd be happy where the company is now because he was a very shrewd businessman, number one. And I think he'd be very happy that his company's making a lot of money and is leading Hollywood, essentially. But I think you're right in the fact that they are going back over and retracing everything over again. I think that's where you think he wouldn't be quite happy with that kind of the route the company's taking, for sure. This heavily IP based sort of model, I think, does go against sort of everything that he did set up.
Yeah, because even in Disneyland, original Disneyland didn't have much IP. It was new stuff.
No, not a lot. Not a lot. There was a couple of the earliest. What was that Snow White ride? The Dumbo ride. Peter Pan. They were all very early ones. But
Sleeping Beauty.
But yeah,
Castle.
most of them were.
Yeah.
The castle. But most of it, yeah, you're right. There was like a donkey ride where you ride donkeys around a dirt track. And a lot of the big rides that sort of came early, Jungle Cruise or that, they weren't IP based. But I think he did try and keep a balance because he did understand that people wanted to come for the Disney experience. And that Sleeping Beauty Castle is nothing but a piece of advertising for the film. Because that castle was there before the movie even came out. And he knew if I put that castle in the middle of the park, people are already familiarized with the film and the iconography from the film years before the film comes out.
Yeah.
So this is what I mean by he's very shrewd businessman, and he did find ways to kind of tie in that IP. But you're right. wasn't in such a way now that the IP just completely floods.
It dominates. Yeah, it's like there's not a new attraction if it's not attached to.
Yes, exactly.
Attached to IP. Yeah.
So let's talk about the Golden Era. We talked about it a little bit, but what is your top-rated Golden Era film that's Snow White through Bambi, and what's your lowest rated, Dave?
Oh, okay. My number one, and I always go between these two. I always go between Fantasia and Snow White.
Yeah.
But I think for me, Fantasia takes that number one spot for me. As far as bottom goes, I put Bambi. This is very hard. It's very hard. These movies only just beat each other out by a hair because these are all wonderful movies. But yeah, I'd have to say for me, Bambi goes at the bottom place.
Yeah, it's actually same for me. I have Fantasia at 5, and I have Bambi at 29. So, what about you, Stanford? What's your top and bottom?
So, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is my top from that era, and this was so hard, because again, it's so subjective, and I adore Fantasia, but I have it at 19 in my overall list, and it's the lowest within this within this era. And that's kind of, it pains me to say, just because again, I admire the movie so much. Yeah. So anyway,
go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't say, but if for my overall ranking, Bambi would come in at number 9, and Fantasia is my top of the top, is my number 1.
And why is it your number 1? What do you love so much about it?
It goes back, I guess, to what I was saying before, is that these films are just such an incredible window into the art of animation, and not only the history, but how art styles were developed. And Fantasia is just the most incredible, visceral, artistic experience. And it's this beautiful movie that not only that simply pairs the animated image with music. And this was a huge experiment. That's what this movie is. It was an experiment for the animators to try to match movement to music. And I just think it's just such an incredible movie.
I love it too. And I have very fond memories of going to see the re-release there's this theater here in Utah called there was this theater in Utah called the Villa that had a balcony, beautiful, fancy theater. It's so sad it sells rugs now, but I have very fond memories of going to see it when I was a little girl and just loving it. And I know a lot of people say, "Oh, it was boring" or whatever. That wasn't my experience when I was little, and I felt very proud of myself for going to see this kind of grown-up movie.
Yeah.
I saw it at the Villa too. I think Rachel, you and I have talked about this. If I'm not mistaken, I went on a school field trip.
Yeah, that may have been the case.
And it was thrilling. I just I loved the whole experience, and just being able to see it on the big screen. Thankfully, I was able to see it at the Villa again at a re-release. Probably in the 90s. Maybe it was in the late 80s. I can't remember. It was during the Eisner years. They re-released it in theaters, and it was stunning. Just absolutely loved it.
I wish that they would do that again and re-release. Even
I do too.
The ones I don't like as much, I would still love to see them
on the big screen.
Yeah. That would be really fun. Like just a Fathom event or whatever.
Yep. That's my dream within a dream.
I know
that Disney would do that. Yeah.
But Dave, what do you think about Snow White, and why do you think that it is maintained its I guess relevance and because it's not I think it's not that it's the first, it's that it's still really great.
Yeah. I think Walt was onto something when he picked stories that were timeless.
Mm-hmm.
And he picked stories that had been around for hundreds of years and knew that these stories would still continue to be around for hundreds of years because there's something about them that is just so. These are stories that aren't in the here and the now. They're set in some sort of ethereal place where they can always exist, and you put Snow White up against something like Ralph Breaks the Internet. How long is a movie like that going to stay relevant? And I think that's the thing about most of these classic, particularly the fairy tale ones, is that they are based on these timeless stories that people can continually relate to throughout the generations.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. And I think the other thing about Snow White is that it has kind of every emotion. It makes it a satisfying film because it's scary, it's funny, it's romantic, it's sweet. And I mean, the only thing about it that I personally don't think holds up, I guess, is just the squeaky singing. But other than that, I really enjoy it.
Well, Walt knew that he didn't succeed with a film unless he made the audience cry. So he wanted to send them through the ringer with every single emotion possible, and if he didn't make the audience cry by the end of the film, he knew he'd failed. So each of his films are this incredible, expertly crafted piece of emotion, essentially. And if you're not crying by the end of that movie, I'm not crying by the end of Ralph Breaks the Internet,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Stanford and I like Ralph Breaks the Internet more than most, but yeah,
I understand it's a good comparison, though.
I like Ralph Breaks the Internet for sure. I just think you look at that in 100 years' time, is that going to stand the test of time like some of these
Snow
other
White
films?
does?
Yeah,
it's probably true. All right, well, let's talk about the package era or the war era, however you want. So, Saludos Amigos, Through the Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. And so, let's see here. My highest rated of these is Ichabod and Mr. Toad, and my lowest is Saludos Amigos. And partly because I don't think Saludos Amigos is bad. I just don't really think it's a movie. It's barely, it's like 45 minutes. I don't know. Like, it's fine, but that's why I have it so low. What about you, Dave?
I'm exactly the same. Ichabod and Mr. Toad at the top, and Saludos Amigos down the bottom.
And what about you, Stanford?
I'm a little different. I've got same with the Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. That's my favorite. I actually really love Saludos Amigos. That's my second behind the Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. I hear what you're saying. I got to see it on the big screen at the very first D23 Expo, and they had some people there talking about the South America research trip, the Good Neighbor trip that Walt and the artist took, and I guess it just really opened it up to me, and I fell in love with it. Also, I've had the chance to go to Peru, and I just thought the way that they captured Peru and Lake Titicaca and all that, I don't know, it really worked for me. The bottom for me is the Three Caballeros. That's film I just can barely tolerate. I don't know what it is about it. I don't care for it.
When you have Donald chasing Skirt for like a lot of that movie, it does get really old, really old. But I do like Jose. I think and Pachito. Those
Panchito, I think.
Are pretty fun. I've said for a long time that I think you could make a really fun movie about how the government used the Disney studios to with these movies to to get draw favor from the Latin American, South American audiences. And because there was like a Nazi component that was growing in that part of the world. And this was actually a really important part of like getting them on our side. And so I think that would actually be very interesting, and it could be a lot of fun.
I don't know if you had a chance to see the documentary Walt and El Grupo.
Yes.
No, I haven't.
Wonderful.
It's really good. I think it's on Disney Plus, Rachel, if you ever get a
Yeah.
chance, because it goes into in depth about the whole good neighbor policy and how Disney was involved with it and whatnot. It was, I believe, it was put together by Frank Thomas's son.
Mm.
As Frank Thomas is one of the 9 old men. And anyway, highly recommended.
Oh, that sounds really good. Yeah, I think it could be a really fun, like Saving Mr. Banks, but like a little bit of espionage kind of thrown in there.
Yeah, well, essentially, at the end of the day, these are propaganda pieces, these films.
Yes.
Really, at the end of the day, which I always scratch my head and wonder how they managed to make their way into the canon. Because you've got movies like Victory Through Air Power, which I don't consider part of the canon. I think that might be maybe a little bit more on the nose about it all. But yeah, these are essentially 2 pieces of propaganda they made during this wartime era. But yeah, that Walt and El Grupo documentary is wonderful. There's some incredible footage of Walt and the team. Yeah, definitely worth checking that out. And I agree, cool. It would make a great film.
So yeah, the one that I defend, that I like more than most, is I actually really enjoy Make Mine Music. I have it at 33, just because I think it's really weird, and I think it's probably one of the most experimental films they've ever done, and I guess I like it for that. And Willie the Whale is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. I love it for that. Like at the end, I mean, I just can't believe they kill Willie at the end. Like, what?
I know. So and then my fondness for Nelson Eddy too. That's a great. Yeah. I know that's a terrific segment or a great really short. Like
yeah. But all right, so then we have the Bronze Era, which is Cinderella through. It's a pretty long era, or no, Silver Era. Sorry, the Silver Era, which is Cinderella through Sleeping Beauty. And so I have Cinderella at my top for that, and then I have Alice in Wonderland at Peter Pan. Sorry, I have Peter Pan at 40 because I'm not the biggest Peter Pan person. What about you, Dave?
I have got Sleeping Beauty at number 1, and right down the bottom is Sword in the Stone.
Okay, so is that your last one for the silver that you do? Sword and Stone.
Wow, yeah. So what? So what's that? 1963. Yeah, I think that would be my last one of the silver era.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then
no, sorry, Jungle Book. Jungle
Book's the last. Okay,
that's
and everybody has a little bit different for this one.
Yeah.
So yeah, my lowest would also be Sword in the Stone then.
Right.
If I was including that. So Cinderella through the Jungle Book. My number 1 would be Cinderella. My lowest would be my lowest would be Sword in the Stone. What about you, Stanford?
The same, Cinderella, and then the top, Sword in the Stone at the bottom.
Yeah, it's really funny because the Disney studios for so long had the idea that movies for girls did not sell. And it's really funny because Cinderella and Snow White's like saved the studios. But just because of Sleeping Beauty, the fact that it didn't make money, that was the reason. And then and then we'd see again with Little Mermaid saving the studio, and Frozen then reinvigorating the studio. It's kind of funny that they still had that idea that girls' movies didn't sell.
Yeah, one of those weird things.
Yeah,
you got to wonder what they were thinking, really.
Yeah.
Because you got movies like Sword in the Stone that never really did well. There's very much a boys film marketed at boys, and yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah, where do you have Peter Pan in your ranking? Dave?
I have it. If we're looking at, let me just find it. Overall, gosh, I've got like 6 documents open here. Peter
That's
Pan
okay.
comes in about number 19 for me overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have it at 40.
Right.
And so I just, I don't know. Like, they're so mean to Wendy, and just some of the stuff is so dated. But I do like the
Oh, yeah.
animation is beautiful, and I I like the humor in it. I think it's funny, especially Captain Hook.
Yeah.
It's very funny.
Yeah.
But that's one of Stanford and I's biggest disagreements.
Right.
Yeah, between that and the Rescuers, right?
Yeah, we'll get to
which
that
we'll get
next.
to. But see, because I have Peter Pan in my overall ranking, I have it at number 4. It's
Right.
just it was a childhood favorite, so it's a very sentimental
Mhm.
choice for me, and I can
Yeah.
appreciate the criticism it receives today. But
Mhm.
I still think it's a story that I love, and I love the Disney retelling. It's my favorite ride at
Yeah.
Disneyland. It goes on
Yeah.
and on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to go. I went on Peter Pan's flight. I wish they would make that a lightning lane, because it's such a long line for such
It
a
is
short
very
ride,
long.
but
Yeah.
it's really fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so then we have the Bronze Age, that is the Aristocats through Oliver and Company. And this is kind of our dark time. A lot of really low
Yeah.
scores.
It was a dark time.
um, my highest in this period is The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, and my lowest is The Black Cauldron at 55. But what about you, Dave? What's your high and low?
My number 1 is Great Mouse Detective, and my bottom would be, this is probably very controversial, but Fox and the Hound.
Oh, I'm with you. I can't stand that movie.
It is boring. I loved it when I was a kid, and I've revisited it when revisiting it, doing numerous videos. I can't. It's so boring. And it's depressing. It's
It is so
such a depressing,
sad.
dark,
Yeah,
and
but
sad
without
movie. It's just
yeah.
like, yeah.
It is, and it's just so sentimental. I mean, I understand why
Mhm.
some people enjoy it, but even me as like the Hallmark girl, like, I like sentiment. It lays it on so thick.
Oh,
That
yeah.
poem, I want to die. It's so.
Uh-huh.
I almost wish they'd have more of the bird and that whole the comic relief. We need more of it.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, for sure.
Yeah. I have it at 49. And like we said, our one of Stanford and I's biggest disagreements is I just don't like the Rescuers. I have it at 54.
Right.
So I have Black Cauldron at
Ooh.
55, and I have the Rescuers at 54. Because I just find Medusa just too much. She's too much of her. She's too mean. I just hate her. And I don't know. I just find Penny too much. I just don't like it. I think it's badly animated. I mean, I like Bernard and Bianca, but if I was having if I was jonesing for some Bernard and Bianca, I would just rather watch Down Under, personally.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have Rescuers at 43 and Rescuers Down Under at 42.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So I'm the lone person who likes this movie. Because it's the top of for this era for me, and it's number 9 overall for me.
Wow.
Again, sentimental, but I just feel like it's the best movie they had made up to that point after Walt died for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I adore the Jungle Book, but Walt was involved with the Jungle Book,
Yeah.
And I just think the Rescuers has got a lot of heart, and I love the concept out of small things can come something that, which is great, And anyway, but we don't mean to blame her. I respect your opinions, and then for me the bottom is the Black Cauldron, which for me is number 62 overall. It's
Well, and we're joking on that we need the pre-Katzenberg cut.
I know.
Yeah.
Seriously,
that campaign.
I wish, and that's one too. I never got to see it on the big screen, so I want to see it. I finally, Rachel, I rounded up a Disney Movie Club sells a Blu-ray of it, so I have a Blu-ray version, and I'm wishing that Cinemark or one of our local chains would do one of those private movie parties again, where you could bring your own DVD, and you can bring your own Blu-ray.
Yeah, I think it would be fun. I mean, if anything, just for the music and the animation is beautiful, but yeah, it just
the story
and the characters are just not there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have one, Dave, in the canon as a whole that you think's underrated, that you sort of you have higher than other people, you would say?
Well, I find, because I've done on my YouTube channel, I've done a whole series of rankings. I've ranked all the films by era, and then I did a full 60 movies, or 56 movies, and then I've updated it every year. I get a lot of people complaining that I've got a lot of the really old films really high. So I'll get people saying, "Why is Fantasia so high? Why is Snow White, Pinocchio so high? Ralph Breaks the Internet's better, or Wreck-It Ralph's better." And it's kind of like I've started to realize that a lot of the classics are starting to, I wouldn't say die out, but I feel like newer generations aren't as receptive to them. And I feel like the longer we go, the less, how do you say it? The more underrated they're becoming. I think, because people, in bordering 90 years that these movies have been around for, and it's like a lot of people have lost the understanding of just how important these movies were artistically and in just in the history of cinema. So I find that a lot of the older ones are very underrated now.
That's true.
But if you're talking about ones that I really love, that I feel like maybe just overall, I'm just trying to just roll through. I really like Pocahontas, and I know that's a really sort of touchy one, and I understand why. And it is. There's a lot in there that's not quite right. But I think it's just such a beautiful. If you separate it from all of that, I think it's such a beautifully animated film. The music is incredible. The colors are incredible. I just love so much about that movie, and I feel like that's because of the controversy that surrounds it. I feel like a lot of people don't tend to appreciate the artistic side of the film. That would probably be my one.
Yeah, it is. The animation is absolutely beautiful. There's no doubt about that. That's for sure. One that I defend is I really love The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. I think because it's for such small children, it's kind of dismissed sometimes. But it has so much to say, and it's so sweet and funny and clever, and I don't know. I just think it's really good. I have it at 14 in my ranking. So all right.
I love it too. I adore it as well. Winnie the Pooh. It's 33 for me, but that's still fairly.
All right. So then we have the Renaissance era, which of course was the one of the greatest eras of Disney, if not the greatest. And it's The Little Mermaid through, I know some people debate, but I go through Tarzan is for the Renaissance.
Yeah.
And for me, I do have I go back and forth because Little Mermaid was the most important to me growing up. Like, it was the first movie I ever really loved.
Yeah.
So I have it at 2, and I have Beauty and the Beast at 1 in this one because I do, but I depend on the rankings. Some rankings I have Little Mermaid at 1, Beauty and the Beast at 2. This time I went Beauty and the Beast at 1 and Little Mermaid at 2. Um, because Beauty and the Beast, I also have a lot of nostalgia for, and it is, I think, the best film they've ever made, the studio. It is just so beautiful and has such a wonderful message. It's got such a great villain. It's especially when you know that, like, Howard Ashman wrote it on his deathbed, is just like it adds a layer, I think, to it. It's absolutely beautiful. So that's my number 1, and I actually have Pocahontas as my lowest, but I do appreciate it, and I don't hate it by any means.
No.
So what about you, Dave?
I'm similar in that there's 2 that I go between, and that is The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast. Lion King is the first movie I ever saw in a cinema, full stop. So I was probably 4 years old, and I was obsessed with it then, and I still absolutely adore it. Beauty and the Beast is an important film for me as well, because this is probably when I was 17, 18, and re-exploring the Disney films as an adult, and sort of appreciating them for different reasons, not just cartoons and colors. Appreciating them for the story and for the music. And Beauty and the Beast for me is that one film that sparked this incredible, like, oh my gosh, this movie is incredible. Like, the music, the storytelling, the characters, just everything about it just hit me. So I go between those 2. I probably give The Lion King the slight edge, only because probably the nostalgia factor of it all. The bottom for me is I've got The Rescuers Down Under here, because that is that first sort of one of that era. Otherwise, if that's not being counted, it would be Hunchback of Notre Dame, which I know is also a very controversial opinion.
Yeah, I have Hunchback at 45, so I'm not the hugest fan of that one. I do like the I've actually seen the stage adaptation now twice recently, and I think it's way better.
Yeah,
I do.
imagine.
Than the
gargoyles or limited gargoyles.
They have the gargoyles, but they're better. They're just better done. And the Frollo is, I think, way better done in that than in the movie.
Yeah.
What about you, Stanford? What's your top and bottom?
So, of course, Beauty and the Beast. I mean, it's my number 1 film too. Overall from the ranking, just so excellent in every way. I really do love The Little Mermaid too. I mean, how can you not? It's just and the significance, the importance of it. For me, though, at the bottom, same. It's The Hunchback of Notre Dame. That movie's so frustrating to me. I just think So I'm glad to hear that the stage adaptation is better. So many problems with the story. I personally, I think honestly, for me, I think it was beautifully made. As far as the animation's stunning, and the songs overall are good, except for that A Guy Like You song, which I want to throw my TV out the window kind of thing. It's just so horrible. I just never have felt that it was a good. The source material was good for a Disney animated feature.
Yeah.
I always just thought it was. I mean, I appreciate that they were trying something different. That I admire, but I always thought this story is just almost just too sad for this genre, or for a Disney animated feature. What do you both think?
Yeah, I agree.
That's the thing that that puts me off this. I loved it as a kid, and I remember seeing this one at a cinema as well. But revisiting it is so dark, and it's so the religious themes and symbology and everything that's loaded into it is like kind of like you're right. It's not a kids film, and it's just very strange. It's a very strange thing.
But it tries to be. That's the problem. Like people say, "Oh,
Oh,
because I love adult animation, I have no problem with
Mm,
that."
yeah,
But it tries to also be a kids' film, and so it
yeah.
just ends up not working. And I think that making Frollo a judge was a big mistake
Mm,
because it just and also they they have Frollo basically killing Quasimodo's mother at the very beginning. So there's nowhere
mm,
for him to go. He's just people say he's a great villain. I don't think he's a great villain. He's just
okay.
evil. Like from
Mm,
the very beginning, and there's nowhere for him to go but be this horrible person. And so I also I don't think it really works, um but yeah, I just Pocahontas. The thing I guess I don't like about Pocahontas, even though I love the animation and I love the music, is the I just find her so insufferable. I just really don't like her as a character. I just like and I mean people rag on Ariel a lot, that she's
mm,
insufferable, but I would take her any day over like Pocahontas actually causes someone's death by her like
mm.
actions and I don't know, I just find her annoying. So, all right. So then we have the post Renaissance where we have Fantasia 2000 through to this is the people debate um through I don't know, Meet the Robinsons or Bolt. Where did you end it, Dave,
I
in
I end
yours?
up with I end up with Bolt
Bolt,
because
okay.
this is the last film that's in production prior to the next takeover at the studio, prior to John Lasseter and Ed Catmull coming into the studio.
Yeah.
They worked on it, but this is a project that came from the
yeah, it
era
was
before
already,
them.
yeah.
Yeah, so I always consider this sort of the last one of that era, and then everything onward that's like an original production from Lasseter and Catmull. That's the next era.
Yeah. Well, my top in this era is The Emperor's New Groove. My
Mm,
lowest is Home on the Range, and it's I think the worst movie Disney ever made.
yeah,
60. I have it
I
60.
agree. Yep. Yeah, my number one is Lilo and Stitch, but it's very very close to The Emperor's New Groove.
Mhm.
And yeah, my last one is Home on the Range, which is my last one overall as well. I can't stand it. It is
It's so
dreadful.
bad.
It's
The
the
only thing I
only movie. It's the only movie that I really just dislike.
yeah,
Really dislike.
it's just so annoying and obnoxious
Hmm.
and terrible characters, and it's
Yeah.
just not funny. And I mean, I do kind of like the yodeling sequence. I think that has like the animation I think is kind of cool in that one. But the character's terrible. It
Mm.
makes no sense. It's awful.
Yeah.
It just feels like nobody was trying in this.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Well, the there is the rumor that they purposely made it bad to kill traditional
2D
animation
animation.
because they knew no one's coming to see these traditionally animated films. We got these 3D animated films. It's the future. That's what everyone wants. Let's make like the worst traditionally animated movie. And it still is today considered the scapegoat for what killed traditional animation at Disney Studios. So whether that is what actually happened or not, who knows? But there you go. Something to think
Mhm.
You know,
about.
that's a really interesting point. I'm glad you bring that up. I've always also wondered too, because after reading Ed Catmull's excellent book Creativity Inc.,
Hmm.
Yeah.
where you get a
Yeah.
window into what was
Yeah.
going on at the Disney studio in that time period, I
Yeah.
just felt like there were way too many, you know, just for lack of a better metaphor, fingers in the pie, like too many
Yeah.
people like providing notes and stuff, and they just the film just never had a coherent vision because I guess I was thinking that initially what a cool idea that Disney Animation was going to do a western.
Mhm.
What a fun idea. And initially it was called Sweating Bullets, and I don't know much about the
Yeah.
plot. I mean, I know I've read some stuff. I want to see I want to see an early cut, or a
Mm.
story, the story or
Yeah.
early storyboards of what that movie might have been before so many people were providing notes. That they had to. Anyway.
Yeah.
And then also, what in the world were they thinking? I still can't get over the fact that Roseanne Barr, Judi Dench, and Jennifer Tilly are the three leads in this movie. Like, are you kidding me? That just is so bad. I'm with you. Well, my top is also The Emperor's New Groove, and then for me, the bottom, Home on the Range, is bad. I have right below it, I have Dinosaur, which is a movie that I can hardly tolerate.
Yeah.
I just think it's so horrible.
It's so boring. It is just NyQuil in a movie form.
Well, and just the story, just initially I thought the animation would be really cool, but I just found it to be very monochromatic and dull. And then
hasn't held up
that
at all.
story, those two old lady dinosaurs. I mean, just like, come on! I just can't even bear it.
Yeah,
can't bear it.
I have Dinosaur 59, so it's very low.
Yeah. How about you, Dave? What is your take on Dinosaur? I don't wish to put you on the spot, but
it's at 58 for me.
Okay, so we all have it low.
Yeah, it's funny because the bottom three of my of this era are my bottom three overall as well, which is Home on the Range, Chicken Little, Dinosaur. Can't stand any of them.
Yeah, those are my bottom three too.
Yeah, those are my since I had the black collar at 60, but for me, 57 Chicken Little, 58 Home on the Range, 59 Dinosaur.
Dinosaur is one that I remember really liking as a kid, and I think I only saw it once in the cinema, and I had this thing in my head for years that, Dinosaur is such a great movie. And when I came back to watch it, I was like, what is this? It's awful. What really does my head in is that all the backgrounds are real. They went and filmed the background plates, and then it's only the characters that are actually animated. It's just the whole thing is just so weird to me. I can't do it.
I should also say that I have Brother Bear at 56 too.
Yeah.
So I mean, that time period.
Yeah. I have Brother Bear at 57. So.
It was so
53
bad.
For me.
Yeah, so sad.
It's just, I hate that movie. And Coda, maybe the worst character in the history of Disney.
Not that a movie can't be sad, but this movie's so sad. I mean, it's so horrible.
And it's so annoying when it tries to be funny. It's terrible. I have a lot in that are that lower in this era. It's a rough era. Yeah. I have to admit, this era was part of the reason why I didn't want to do it chronologically.
Right.
It did help, didn't it, Rachel?
Really did.
With this last rewatch we both did together. Yeah, to mix it up. The random number generator.
Yeah,
was our friend.
Lifesaver.
So, do you include all up to Encanto in revival, or do you consider do we have a post revival era starting with Ralph Breaks the Internet?
I still consider it part of revival, but only because I haven't been able to see a line yet where you can clearly go, okay, we're in a new era now. I think Encanto in particular is so close to Frozen, what Frozen is, that I feel like we're still in the same era where they're telling these same sorts of stories. I feel like maybe the next film, Strange World, could be our line because we're finally doing something that's a bit different. I had a big issue with Encanto was that it was so same to everything we've seen from Disney for the last 10 years. And I just want something fresh. I want something new. To do something different, and that's what Strange World I think looks like for me. So maybe that could be a new point. I don't know. Sometimes I think it's hard to tell why you're in the era. These are things where you've got to look back in hindsight and go, okay, this is where something changed. And a lot of these eras you see are marked by the changeover of studio hierarchy. You've got the Walt Disney era, you've got the Roy Disney era, you've got the Eisner era, you've got the Lasseter era, and then Jennifer Lee era. So maybe when Jennifer Lee steps down, we get a new someone in. Maybe that's the line. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it just feels like for me, Ralph Breaks the Internet is kind of post Lasseter, is why I would think maybe that might be a post revival start. But
Right, yeah, that's true.
but I don't know. What do you think, Stanford? Not
I
that
think you both bring up really good points. I feel like Raya and the Last Dragon really. Again, I hear what you're saying that the stories feel the same, but I also feel like, in a way, that they're different, particularly with Raya and then with Encanto, in that they were really focused. I mean, Moana did this too, but really focused on these different cultures, and also because Raya, they chose not to make it a musical, much to the chagrin of Rachel.
Yes.
No, I hear what you're saying, Rach, but I don't know. I agree. I hear what you're saying as far as it's hard to draw a line. For me, I feel like Raya felt like a departure into a new type of filmmaking.
I just think that there's all the spots for songs in Raya. And not that every single Disney movie needs to be a musical, but I feel like we would be talking about it more. It'd be more memorable if we were humming a tune, whereas I don't know. I just feel like it makes the movie more forgettable. The fact that, because obviously Big Hero 6 doesn't need songs because that's not the kind of movie it is. But I just feel like for this princess story, that I'm just dying for an I Want song for Raya. I don't hate the movie by any means. I have it at 28 in my ranking. But my if we're going to include this all in one era, then my number one is Tangled. I just love Tangled. I have it at 3 actually in my ranking, very high. I feel like it's Disney's first real romantic comedy, that you get the romantic banter between Flynn and Rapunzel, and you have a little bit of that in Aladdin. You have a few others, but this was the most, I think, where really Flynn could be argued to be the lead character in the movie. And I don't know, I love their chemistry together, and I love the animation. The lights is just so beautiful, and I love Mother Gothel. I miss Disney villains so much. I'm so over the non-villain or the villain reveal. I want a villain again, but that's probably wishful thinking on my part. But yeah, my least favorite of this era is Princess and the Frog. And Princess and the Frog was so disappointing. I really was so excited for it. And I just didn't really like the story. And I don't like the way they handle voodoo in the movie. I think I don't know, just as a spiritual person, I just don't like it. Makes me uncomfortable. And I mean, I think it's beautifully animated and I don't hate it, but it's my least favorite of the group. I just don't like the story. And I don't like that she's a frog for most of the movie because I love Tiana. But what about you, Dave? What's your favorite and least favorite?
We share a favorite. My number one's Tangled. Love it. Just adore it. I think it's just such a gorgeous film. And my bottom, this is going to be controversial as well, is Frozen. Frozen is just so annoying to me. It is just an annoying movie. I can appreciate the. I love the animation. I think it is stunning. I think it's a gorgeous film, but it is annoying. It's just an annoying movie. I don't like the music. I don't like the characters. I can't stand the snowman. I can't stand it. That said, I did like Frozen 2. That kind of comes in the middle of my revival era ranking. But yeah, Tangled is number one. I think it's just such a stunning film. Everything about it is just wonderful. And it helps that one came out around that era where I was starting to really get back into the Disney stuff again, I think, as well. That was one of the first ones. I was like, oh, it's just incredible. So, yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Stanford?
Tangled. for me. As the, I just everything that you both have said about. I mean, I love that movie so much, and I just think that they aced it. I think not only is it a great romantic comedy, I also think that I feel like they finally successfully used computer, CG animation to make a Disney movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's elements of Meet the Robinsons and Bolt that I really like, but I just felt like Tangled. They finally, they aced it. And then also bottom for me is The Princess and the Frog. I love Tiana, and I think conceptually, I was really excited about this movie, and I just feel like the story is just the pits. I hate it. So yeah. So
Yeah.
it's too bad. But
Where do you have Princess and the Frog, Dave?
That's my third favorite of the era.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, where is that one gone? Okay, Princess and the Frog comes in at 24 for me. So I
Mm-hmm.
quite like it. I love the music. I love the animation. I really like the characters. I just think it's really great. I just love it. I think it's really great, and particularly as one of the last traditionally animated films. I mean,
Yeah,
it
I love
really
the
shows the
animation.
promise that the the style of animation still has. And I think we should be getting
Mm-hmm.
more. But
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to the Disney Plus series. I'm keen to see what
Yeah,
they
me
do with
too.
that.
oh, me too. I think it's gonna. My hope is it's just gonna be terrific.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one that I'm not as high on as well, both Stanford and I agree, but that most people love is I'm not the biggest Wreck-It Ralph fan. I
Yeah.
have it at 41, which I know some
Mm-hmm.
people would be shocked by. I think the story is pretty bland. I just don't think it's that
Yeah.
great. Once it gets into Sugar Rush, I think it's so predictable and so bland. And I don't know. I guess maybe because I'm not a gamer, a lot of the humor isn't like super
Yeah.
funny to me. And I just don't think I think it's the most overrated Disney film.
Yeah.
I think it's fine. I don't hate it,
Mm.
but I don't know. I don't think it's that great.
It's
Yeah.
38 for me.
Mm-hmm.
I have
Not
it
that
And
high.
yeah, no.
I
Yeah.
have it 46. Yeah, it's not a
Yeah.
favorite either.
That's.
But I really like the sequel.
I think if I do have Frozen pretty high, I have it at 12. And the reason why is because I love just the relationship between the two sisters. And I love the fact that we have two princesses and that they end up rescuing each other. I think is really lovely. And I think that's probably the Disney movie that really embraced modern Broadway and as far as the aesthetic of the sound. Um, and particularly um, the like duet numbers that they have. I think I feel like you're watching a Broadway show, whereas like the other, like the Menken and Ashman films, they had to be kind of adapted and changed in order to become a
Yeah.
Broadway show. Like it doesn't quite have the sort of the timbre and the same kind of. They had to be sort of changed. Whereas this is the most. I think Frozen is the most Broadway that they've ever done. But yeah, I actually even wrote a whole piece for rotoscopers about Indefensible Olaf. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
I admittedly am not a big fan of Broadway
yeah,
musicals. I am just not a fan of the over the top, theatrical,
Mhm.
whatever. The Disney musicals are really the only musicals that really work for me, and the classic Hollywood stuff, Gene Kelly,
Yeah,
Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin. I love those just classic ones. But the Broadway, that really over the top Broadway stuff, is just not something that I've
yeah,
ever been able to get into. And I think that comes back to Frozen. Just to me, I
yeah.
would describe that as being overly Broadway. And I think that's a big reason why I don't
And
particularly gravitate
that's
towards
why
that
I
film.
like it. So that, that just shows, which is really funny. And I think that's what's great about the Disney canon is that there really is something for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
And there's such variety. The studio's tried a little bit of everything. And so yeah, I think that's true. And I also really enjoyed Frozen 2. I have it at 22.
Yeah.
I love the fact that they were both queens by the end. That made me very happy. I didn't like that they introduced new characters and then did nothing with any of them.
Yeah,
They
right.
were that was disappointing, but I still enjoyed it. Yeah. All right. Well, very good. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming and talking about the Disney canon with us.
I know. Thank you,
Pleasure.
Dave.
I'm
It's so
always happy
nice to
to.
talk with you, and
Yeah,
appreciate so much your great insights. And anyway, just so great.
Thank you so much. I always say, and as I said, I've done a number of these videos before, and I get a lot of really sort of hateful comments from people who are like, how dare you like this movie more than this one? How can you put this below this? I love Brother Bear. What are you doing? But I say at the end of the day, like there's 60 movies. This is the best part of 90 years worth of artistic achievement. And there's no way that any one person is going to have the exact same list. And the thing about these movies is that we all grow up with these at different times in our life. We connect with them for different reasons. And whether that's because we love the music, we love the characters, we love the stories, or because we connect with the stories on a real kind of human level, we relate to these stories in different ways. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about these movies is that we all connect to them in our own special individual ways. And, we might have your favorite movie might be my least favorite movie or whatever. I think that's great. I always say that you can learn as much from a movie you don't like as a movie that you do like. You pick it apart. Why didn't it work for you? But how could this work for someone else? And I love having conversations like this because we just get to sort of like, well, why did it work for you? Why didn't it work for you? It's been great. So I've been an absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, and do you want to plug your podcast or where can people find you online?
Sure, of course. You can find me at Dave Lee Down Under. I'm on all the social medias. I'm very active on Twitter, but my main platform is YouTube, where I'm constantly doing videos, mostly focused on animation, long video essays and history breakdowns, little documentary things, ranking videos, etc., etc. I do have a podcast as well, which is the Dave Lee Down Under podcast, which is more sort of just general film related. It's my one outlet to be able to just talk about something that might not necessarily be animation. It's a nice little reprieve for me to do something a bit different. But yeah, Dave Lee Down Under, you'll find me across all those platforms. And yeah,
I'm always amazed how fast you get the news episodes.
I know, Dave.
Videos out. I was like, I just heard about
it.
Seriously, got a full analysis.
It's amazing
with graphics.
I wake up at 6:30 in the morning, or 6 o'clock. Well, actually 5:45, but I'm usually up by about 6:30, 7 o'clock. My first thing I do in the morning is watch a movie because I always feel like it gets the sort of creative juices flowing, but it's like prime time for news to be dropping as well. So if I'm up at like 6 a.m. and a news piece has dropped, I'm like, all right, my day's work has begun already. I put everything aside and I get on with the news piece to just drop everything to go and do it. Because sadly, that's how YouTube works. You got to be like one of the first ones in. And I have just such a huge library of footage and everything that it's really easy for me to just piece videos together now. So I've got that down.
Very impressive.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, you can follow us at Disney Talking on Twitter and make sure you check that out. We'd love to have you. And Stanford, where can people find you?
On Twitter, I'm at Stanford Clark. I also have a movie podcast and blog at moviespastandpresent.com. And please follow me on Instagram. My handle's at moviespap, as in past and present.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So please check that out. And also check out the Hallmarkies podcast. We have a lot of fun all year round, not just at Christmas. So please take a look at that. And thanks again, Dave. We really appreciate it. And
thanks so much, Dave.
Yeah, let us know what you think of all the things we talked about. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See ya.